We don't cohere in community anymore because there's such a lack of grace and patience. And if we respond in the real world like we do on social media with outrage and cancel culture, our relationships will fall apart and our communities will fragment. Part of the reason we struggle with patience is because we are in an age where we seek what's often known as instant gratification. You want it now. We have Amazon Prime, we have next day delivery, we even have same day delivery. We have Grubhub, next 10 to 20 minutes delivery. You can get things instantly. And one of the reasons that we struggle with patience so much is because we have commoditized time. So we talk of spending time, or taking time, or redeeming time, or trading time. So time is this kind of measurable quantity, and it's probably one of the most valuable things that we actually perceive that we have in late modern society, which is why we quite often say, I'm cash rich, but time poor. In other words, time is more valuable to us than even money itself. And so in this age when we measure time so carefully and we long to have as much time as possible but feel like it's chasing away, of course, something like patience or endurance, where you have to wait for something over a long period of time, can feel deeply problematic. And yet, patience is utterly vital to both doing life well and also doing the spiritual life well, because so many things that are worthwhile in life require patience and require us being able to deal with the difficulty of time and the passing of time. So let's look at this virtue and why it is so necessary. And of all the virtues in the list of the 9 aspects of the fruit of the Spirit, this is arguably one of the most relevant ones for us today. We're going to first of all think about the character of patience, then we're going to think about the importance of patience, and then thirdly, we're going to think about cultivating patience. So let's start first of all with the character of patience. What is it like? What are we talking about when we're talking about this virtue of patience? You can pick up with me in verse 10. The Apostle Paul says that he's continually asking God, and for what? He says, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord, please him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience. Now, endurance and patience very often go together in the scriptures. We have these two kind of virtues that in some ways can be bound up together as one virtue. So the word for endurance is a word in the original, which hupomone, which is literally to hyperstand or to persistently stand. It's the idea of, the winds kind of blow and things rail against you, but you still stand because you're rooted and planted. You endure. It's about showing patience over a long period of time, being able to endure difficulties in the present because of the future good. You're not knocked over. You keep on keeping on. That's endurance. Patience is a slightly different word. The word for patience is actually in the original the opposite of being short-tempered. We say when someone loses their temper, they're short-tempered. Well, this literally means long-tempered, makrothumeo, which is the idea of a long desire, or long-tempered. And the slight difference here is this isn't about keeping on, but rather this is about when you encounter difficulties in the presence, you're peaceful about it. You don't fly off the handle, you don't lose your cool. Because you have trust in God, you're able to overcome the difficulties of the present with a patient and peaceful demeanor. So putting these two together, endurance and patience, I'd say the virtue that we're looking at can be defined as this: to patiently and peacefully, or to persistently and peacefully endure present difficulties because of a future good. That's what we're talking about. To persistently and peacefully endure present difficulties because of a future good. That's what patience is. Now, it's absolutely vital, as we're going to see, but let me try to flesh out a little bit more what it looks like. I don't know if any of you have been down to the 9/11 memorial. It's a really impactful place to kind of go. I go there reasonably frequently, but I had some friends visiting from out of town last week. And so the 6 of us went down and we went to see the 9/11 memorial. And one of the key things about the 9/11 memorial isn't just the incredible infinity pools that are down there, but actually the survivor tree. And the survivor tree has a plaque there that explains what it is. So the survivor tree is a pear tree. that was nearly completely destroyed when the Twin Towers were brought down. It was burned, but very, very badly. Its branches were completely broken off. It was little more than a rooted stump after the attacks. And yet the New York Parks and Recreation Authority took it away and rehabilitated it over a long period of time. And it started to sprout back into new life. And having gone from just being a broken down, burnt down kind of stump, it started to shoot new lives and new shoots and new growth. And now, when I was down there last week, it was in full bloom, a pear tree in full bloom. It had completely healed, and it was continuing to flourish and blossom in its season. And they say on the plaque that this is a great symbol of resilience, of endurance, of patience, something that has been beaten down, faced great hardship, but has overcome and now is there as a symbol of solidity and keeping on, and a symbol of peace in an otherwise crazy city, this symbol of patience, the survivor tree. Now, why this matters, I think, is because so many of us at various points in our lives can feel beaten up, can feel broken down. We feel like we've received the burns of present difficulties. Maybe you're here this evening and that describes your experience. Maybe you feel like bits have been knocked off you with present hardships. I don't know what it is. Maybe a relationship that's not going the way you hoped it would. Maybe your career is struggling. Maybe you're fearful about financial or job insecurity. Maybe it's just the general state of the world. But whatever it is, there can be hardships in the present. And they can often feel like they're burning us or knocking bits off us like that survivor tree. And when we feel like that, the temptation can be to feel like we're not going to endure, or to fly off the handle and throw our arms up in the air and not feel any sense of peace in the midst of it. And yet, you look at that tree. It's not easy that it's got there, but now, through hardship and through care and attention, it is patiently and peacefully endured, and there it is blossoming. And that's my longing for you, and I think that's your longing for yourself, that you would be able to overcome the difficulties of the present and in time come into full bloom. That requires patience. That's what patience is all about, to persistently and peacefully overcome the difficulties of the present because of some future good. So vital for life. Let's now think about why this is so important for us and why it is that it's so needful. Because the Apostle Paul clearly thinks that it's really important because he prays for it. He says in verse 9, we continually ask God to fill you with knowledge of his will. And he goes on to ask for patience. And he prays that you would know the Lord and his work in your life with all wisdom, bearing fruit, that you might be enduring and patient. In other words, he places a really high priority on it. Why does he place such a high priority on patience? Well, I think it's because he's aware of the importance of patience. Let's think about why it's so important as we think about patience with others, patience with yourself, and patience with God. Let's think, first of all, about patience with others. Patience with others is vital to be able to navigate relationships and to be able to do community properly. There's a phrase in baseball that you don't swing your bat at every bad throw. What that means is that you can be the best batter in the world, but if you step up to the plate and every single throw that comes over the plate, you swing your bat at it, you're going to swing and a miss and you'll be struck out more times than not. So it is in relationships that part of being patient is to be discerning about which things we need to actually gently and graciously confront in relationships and community, and which things we let to go through to the backstop. One of the problems I think we face of today is that because of lots of different reasons, because we're impatient, because we can often be self-righteous, and because we're so formed by the outrage engine that is social media, we end up swinging our bat at every bad throw in a relationship. I think about it. How many times in the day do you say or do something which you regret? Multiple times, right? And yet in our relationships with other people, we hold people often to such a high standard that the smallest little thing that we're unhappy with, and we immediately throw our hands up in the air, roll our eyes, and then break off the relationship with them. It's one of the reasons we're becoming so individualized today. We don't cohere in community anymore because there's such a lack of grace and patience. Lots of people are going to get lots of things wrong. They're going to say things which you don't like. They're going to do things which rub you up the wrong way. And if we respond in the real world like we do on social media with outrage and cancel culture, our relationships will fall apart and our communities will fragment. We're swinging our bats at every bad throw and wondering why we're striking out every relationship we've ever been in. We have no patience anymore. We have no endurance. Now, I need to be careful, of course, because I would hate for anyone to hear from that this is giving a mandate for someone not calling out an injustice in a situation. There is an appropriate time to call out sin or dysfunctional behavior or injustice in a relationship. And certainly this is not giving a mandate for someone having to stay in a kind of bullying, abusive relationship of any kind. If that's you, then that's not what this is saying. What I am saying is that it requires wisdom and discernment to work out when you take on a difficulty in a relationship. And is the relationship actually at the point of dysfunction that something needs to be done about it? Or is it just people being all too human and actually you just need to check yourself and let it go? That requires discernment. Quite often that requires the discernment of a community as you speak to one or two trusted other people and say, can I run this past you? Quite often it requires the associated virtues of curiosity and charity, maybe assuming the best interests of another person or at least giving them a chance to explain. But here's the point. If we lack patience in relationships, we'll never be able to cohere as a community and we'll constantly be losing friends. We won't have friendships that endure over a long period of time. I'm enormously grateful to my friends that they've been discerning about the times to call me out on something and the times when they've just said, actually, we'll let that one go. We don't need to confront everything. Wisdom and discernment forged by patience is vital in how we deal with others.